The air was thick with tension, the kind you can almost feel pressing down on your chest. For months now, whispers have been swirling in hushed corners of Montecito's glittering social circles. Whispers so shocking they sound almost too wild to be true. But what if they aren't? What if behind the dazzling smiles and carefully curated Instagram posts, a storm has been raging? One that could bring down not just a marriage, but an entire empire of influence built on love, loyalty, and sacrifice. This is not the first time Meghan Markle has found herself in the eye of a media hurricane. But this time, it's different. This time, it isn't about her clashes with the royal family, the palace aides, or even the tabloids. This time, it's about something far more personal. It's about betrayal. About a husband whose heart may have never truly belonged to her. About a prince who, after years of turmoil, is reportedly ready to walk away. Not alone, but back into the arms of the woman he once called the love of his life. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. And the fallout? It's said to be explosive. Friends close to the Sussex household say Meghan's reaction was like nothing they've ever seen before. A calm and calculated duchess. Not this time. According to insiders, she is spiraling, clutching desperately to a marriage slipping through her fingers. Meanwhile, Prince Harry appears more resolute than ever, determined to take control of a life he claims has been hijacked by media pressure, family feuds, and, some allege, the suffocating dynamics of his own marriage. But how did it all come to this? To understand the gravity of this moment, we must rewind the clock, back to a time when Harry was still a young man, searching for love in a world where every glance and gesture was scrutinized. Before there was Meghan, there was Chelsy Davy. A vibrant, fiercely independent Zimbabwean beauty who captured Harry's heart in a way no one else ever could. Their relationship wasn't perfect, far from it, but there was something undeniably raw and real about it. For years, royal watchers believed Chelsy was the one. She seemed to get Harry in a way no one else did. She didn't care for titles, she hated the paparazzi, and she made no secret of her discomfort with the rigid royal protocols. In many ways, she was Harry's escape from a gilded cage. But ultimately, the same forces that drew them together pulled them apart. Enter Meghan Markle, a stunning American actress with charm to spare and a vision of change that resonated with Harry's own sense of rebellion. Their love story unfolded like a fairy tale, but as we now know, fairy tales often hide the sharpest thorns. Fast forward to today, and the cracks are impossible to ignore. Reports from sources within Harry and Meghan's inner circle paint a picture of mounting frustrations and emotional distance. Harry, once the embodiment of devotion, is said to have grown quiet, withdrawn, even cold. Meghan, used to commanding rooms and winning over crowds, is now allegedly battling a storm of insecurity as she faces the unthinkable, losing Harry to the very woman she believed was long gone from his heart. According to leaked accounts, Harry has been in contact with Chelsy for months, first under the innocent guise of friendship, then with more intimate undertones. Secret phone calls, emotional confessions, a rekindling of something Meghan thought she had extinguished forever. And when Meghan found out, she lost it, one insider claimed. She screamed that she gave up everything for him, her career, her country, her peace of mind. And this is how he repays her. Others say Meghan is fighting harder than ever to hold on, pulling every string she can to keep Harry from walking away. But the question remains, is it already too late? And perhaps the most jaw-dropping revelation of all, Harry has reportedly told close friends he is ready to file for divorce and, in a move no one saw coming, marry Chelsy Davy. If true, this would be one of the most shocking twists in modern royal history, a story of love lost, love found, and a duchess pushed to the brink. As we dive into this tangled web of heartbreak, betrayal, and redemption, prepare yourself for a journey that will challenge everything you thought you knew about Harry and Meghan. Because if these reports are true, nothing will ever be the same again. Long before Meghan Markle came into the picture, long before the world watched Prince Harry walk away from royal life and settle into the sun-soaked hills of California, there was another woman. A woman whose presence in Harry's life left an indelible mark, so deep that even now, whispers of her name send ripples through royal circles. Chelsy Davy. To understand the full weight of what is unfolding now, we must go back to the early 2000s when Harry, still in his early 20s, was navigating the pressures of royal duty and the heavy shadow cast by the tragic loss of his mother, Princess Diana. He was a young man torn between obligation and the simple desire to live freely, and in Chelsy, he found someone who seemed to embody that freedom. Chelsy, the daughter of a Zimbabwean safari operator and a wealthy businessman, was not the typical royal girlfriend. She was wild in spirit, fiercely independent, and utterly uninterested in the pomp and circumstance that defined Harry's world. Their paths crossed during Harry's gap year in Africa, and from the moment they met, there was an undeniable spark. Their connection was raw and real, filled with the kind of fiery passion that couldn't be contained within palace walls. Friends described them as electric together. Chelsy made Harry laugh like no one else, grounding him in a way the royal family never could. She wasn't afraid to challenge him, to call out his flaws, or to walk away when the pressures of his world became too much. But their love story was anything but smooth. From the beginning, Chelsy struggled with the suffocating attention that came with dating a prince. Paparazzi hounded her every move, painting her as both a party girl and a reluctant princess-in-waiting. Headlines speculated endlessly about their future. Would she accept an engagement? Could she handle the scrutiny of royal life? Harry, on the other hand, was deeply in love. He saw in Chelsy a future where he could escape the rigidity of his upbringing. He imagined a life far from the gilded cages of Buckingham Palace. A life filled with adventure, laughter, and the warmth of Africa's sun. But Chelsy was honest from the start. She didn't want a crown. She didn't want to be bound by centuries-old traditions or live under a microscope. "I'm not cut out for this," she reportedly told Harry during one of their many heart-to-heart conversations. Still, they tried. For nearly 7 years, their relationship was an on-again, off-again whirlwind. There were moments of pure bliss, secret holidays in Botswana, nights out in London where they seemed like any other young couple in love, and private letters exchanged across continents. But there were also moments of deep frustration. The media's relentless pursuit took its toll. Chelsy was photographed crying after arguments. Harry was accused of being reckless, partying too hard, and not protecting her enough from the royal machine's pressures. Each breakup felt final, yet somehow, they always found their way back to each other, until they didn't. In 2011, Chelsy and Harry parted ways for what seemed to be the last time. At Prince William and Kate Middleton's wedding, Chelsy was spotted wiping away tears. Some speculated that seeing her ex-boyfriend's brother marry his college sweetheart drove home the reality of what she and Harry had lost. Harry later admitted in interviews that he had loved Chelsy deeply, calling her an amazing woman and reflecting on how hard it was to watch her walk away. She had been his first great love, and some say his truest. But life moved on. Chelsy focused on her career, building a successful jewelry line and carving out a quiet, private life away from the glare of the tabloids. Harry, meanwhile, threw himself into his royal duties and, years later, met Meghan Markle, a woman who seemed to offer him the kind of partnership he had once dreamed of having with Chelsy. Yet, for those who know Harry best, Chelsy was never truly gone from his heart. And now, as shocking reports surface about Harry's alleged rekindled connection with Chelsy, the world is asking, was she always the one? It is said that love never really dies. It just waits for the right moment to return. And for Harry and Chelsy, that moment may be now. But if this is true, what does it mean for Meghan Markle? As we continue this story, the stage is set for a collision of past and present. A collision that could shatter the fragile world Harry and Meghan have built together. Because when first love calls, even a prince may find himself unable to resist its pull. From the outside, Harry and Meghan's marriage seemed like a fairy tale reborn. After all, wasn't this the prince who defied centuries of tradition, gave up his place in the royal hierarchy, and left behind the gilded walls of Buckingham Palace for love? Wasn't this the couple who stood hand in hand on global stages, vowing to change the world together? But behind the smiles, the inspirational speeches, and the carefully curated social media posts, insiders say the cracks had begun to form. Quietly at first, subtle hints of tension that only those closest to them could see. But over time, they grew into chasms too deep to ignore. It began as these things often do, with a shift in energy. In the first years of their marriage, Harry was full of determination. He had made a choice to stand by Meghan no matter what, even as the British press tore her apart, and even as his family looked on in dismay. Friends recall how protective he was, how he seemed to channel all his anger at the injustices Meghan faced into action. "I've lost my mother, and now I refuse to lose my wife," he famously declared during an early interview. But over time, the fire in Harry's eyes began to dim. According to those who spent time in their Montecito mansion, the tension was palpable. Meghan, used to being in control, often clashed with Harry over decisions big and small. Their shared projects, Netflix deals, podcasts, and philanthropic ventures became a source of stress rather than joy. "She's incredibly driven," one former staffer revealed, but Harry isn't wired the same way. He wanted a quieter life, but Meghan always had a bigger vision. That difference started pulling them apart. And then there was the isolation. California was supposed to be their sanctuary, but Harry struggled to adjust. He missed his old friends, many of whom had grown distant after his exit from royal life. He felt out of place in Hollywood circles, unsure of who he could trust in a world where influence was currency. Meanwhile, Meghan thrived in her new environment, seamlessly blending into the glamorous world of A-listers and power brokers. Harry felt like a guest in his own life, one insider explained. He went from being the most popular royal to being Meghan's husband. It weighed on him more than anyone realized. Arguments became more frequent. Sources close to the couple describe heated exchanges late into the night, with Harry storming out for long walks along the beach and Meghan venting to her inner circle about his lack of ambition. She reportedly urged him to be more proactive in shaping their new empire, but Harry resisted, longing for a simpler existence. It wasn't just professional tension that frayed their bond. Insiders claim Meghan's relationship with Harry's friends was strained from the start. Some of his oldest companions allegedly felt pushed out of his life, replaced by Meghan's inner circle. Harry, caught in the middle, found himself withdrawing even further. Then came the whispers. In quiet conversations, those closest to Harry began noticing a change in him. He seemed distracted, his mind elsewhere. He spoke more often about Africa, about how much he missed the peace he felt there. And, more surprisingly, he began mentioning Chelsy Davy's name again. At first, it seemed innocent enough. Chelsy was part of Harry's past, a chapter he had long since closed, or so everyone thought. But in private, Harry began reminiscing about their time together, about how she understood his world without ever wanting to be part of it, about how she offered him the kind of unconditional love he hadn't felt in years. Was it nostalgia? Or was it something more dangerous? The tipping point came when Meghan allegedly discovered messages between Harry and Chelsy. Sources say she was livid, confronting Harry in what one aide described as the fight to end all fights. Harry, caught off guard, reportedly insisted the messages were platonic, that Chelsy was simply an old friend he had turned to for advice. But Meghan wasn't convinced. She told him, "If you miss her so much, why don't you just go back to her?" A source revealed. Harry didn't answer. And that silence said more than words ever could. From that moment on, the dynamic between them shifted irreparably. Meghan, once confident and commanding, began to feel threatened in her own marriage. Harry, once steadfast in his devotion, seemed to retreat emotionally, spending more time alone and less time engaging in their shared projects. Even their public appearances hinted at the strain. Body language experts analyzing photos of the couple noted Harry's distant gaze, his tight-lipped smiles. Meghan's hand would reach for his, but his would hang limply by his side. Something was breaking, and the world was starting to see it. Behind closed doors, Meghan reportedly pleaded with Harry to recommit to their marriage, to remember why they had sacrificed so much for each other. But Harry's heart was elsewhere. As one friend put it, he loved Meghan, yes. But Chelsy? Chelsy was different. She was the one who got away, and I think he realized too late that he never stopped loving her. Now, as rumors swirl that Harry is ready to walk away from Meghan and return to Chelsy, the stage is set for a dramatic showdown, a clash of love, loyalty, and ambition that could redefine everything we thought we knew about the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. And the question on everyone's lips is chilling in its simplicity. Has Harry already made his choice? The sun had barely begun to rise over the Montecito hills when the first signs of trouble emerged. To outsiders, their sprawling estate appeared calm and serene, bathed in golden light, surrounded by lush gardens and guarded gates. But inside the mansion's thick walls, chaos brewed, an emotional storm that threatened to unravel the carefully constructed image of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's idyllic life. It began with a single sound. A door slammed so hard that the noise echoed through the marble-floored corridors. Staff members, already wary of the growing tension between Harry and Meghan, froze in place. It wasn't the first time they'd heard raised voices, but something about this morning felt different, more volatile, more dangerous. The fight had started hours earlier, long before dawn, when Meghan stumbled across something on Harry's phone. According to whispers from household staff, she had grown suspicious after noticing him retreating to his private study late at night, whispering into the phone with the door locked. She'd confronted him about it once before, but Harry dismissed her concerns, insisting he was catching up with friends in England. But this time, Meghan decided not to ask. This time, she acted. In the early hours of the morning, while Harry slept soundly beside her, Meghan reportedly took his phone and scrolled through his recent calls and messages. That's when she saw it. Chelsy Davy's name lighting up his call log, again and again. There were long voice notes, short text exchanges, and even a few emojis that made her stomach twist with rage. The betrayal felt suffocating. To Meghan, this wasn't just about an old flame or casual conversation. This was about history repeating itself. She had sacrificed everything, her acting career, her homeland, her peace of mind, to build a life with Harry. And now, after all they had endured together, he was turning back to the very woman she believed she had replaced in his heart. She didn't wait for the sun to rise. "Harry, wake up," she demanded, shaking him awake. Her voice, though steady at first, carried an undertone of fury that Harry couldn't ignore. Bleary-eyed and confused, Harry sat up. "What's wrong?" he murmured. "Don't play dumb with me," Meghan snapped, holding up his phone. "You've been speaking to her, haven't you? Chelsy, don't even try to deny it." Harry's face went pale. For a moment, the room fell silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioner. Then he spoke, his voice low and defensive. "Meghan, it's not what you think." "Not what I think." Meghan's voice cracked, rising to a pitch that made the walls seem to close in around them. "You're calling your ex in the middle of the night, hiding it from me, and you're telling me it's not what I think." Harry tried to explain, but the words caught in his throat. In truth, he didn't have a good answer. He hadn't planned to reach out to Chelsy. It had just happened. One night, overwhelmed by the pressure of his new life, he thought of her and wondered how she was doing. He sent a simple message, not expecting a reply. But she had responded, and soon they were talking regularly. About Africa, about old memories, about the simplicity of the life they once dreamed of together. It felt like an escape. But to Meghan, it felt like betrayal of the highest order. "You promised me," Meghan shouted, tears welling in her eyes. "You promised me I was enough. That she was part of your past, that you were done with that life. And now I find this. After everything we've been through." Harry rubbed his face, exhaling deeply. "Meg, listen to me. Chelsy and we're just talking. She's a friend. I needed someone to talk to who understands." "Understands what?" Meghan cut him off sharply. "Understands you better than your wife? Is that what you're saying?" The argument escalated quickly. Staff members in nearby rooms could hear muffled shouts and thuds as Harry and Meghan paced back and forth, voices growing louder and more desperate. One aide later described it as a volcanic eruption, years of tension exploding all at once. "You've changed, Harry," Meghan reportedly cried. "You're not the man I married. You're distant, distracted. You don't even look at me the same way anymore. And you don't listen to me anymore, Meg," Harry shot back. "You don't see how hard this has been for me. I gave up everything for you, and now I feel like I'm suffocating." The words hung in the air like poison. It was a confession Meghan had feared but never thought she would hear. Suffocating? After all the sacrifices she had made? After all the battles they had fought together against the press, the palace, and even their own families? In her mind, Harry wasn't just betraying her. He was betraying the life they had built together, the very dream they had sold to the world. In a moment of anger, Meghan reportedly hurled his phone across the room, where it shattered against the wall. "If you want her so badly," she screamed, "go back to her. See if she'll fight for you the way I have." Harry said nothing. He didn't raise his voice, didn't try to argue. He simply stood there, staring at the floor. And that silence, Meghan realized, was the loudest answer of all. After what felt like hours, Harry walked out of the room, leaving Meghan sobbing on the bed. He didn't say where he was going, and Meghan didn't ask. The house grew quiet again, but it was the kind of quiet that feels heavy, like the calm before a storm. For Harry, that morning marked a turning point. For Meghan, it was the beginning of what she would later describe to friends as the worst day of my life. And for the world, it was the day the fairy tale began to crumble. As the sun rose over Montecito, Harry wandered barefoot along the beach, staring out at the waves. Somewhere deep in his heart, a question echoed. Had he made the biggest mistake of his life? Or was this his chance to make things right? The Montecito meltdown, as it's now called by those close to the Sussexes, was just the beginning. The events that followed would prove even more shocking, leading to a decision that would send shockwaves across the globe. Because for Harry, the pull of his past was growing stronger every day. And Meghan? She wasn't about to let him go without a fight. It was a quiet evening in London when Chelsy Davy's phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number flashing across the screen. She hesitated for a moment, her thumb hovering over the decline button, but something, an inexplicable pull in her chest, made her answer. "Chelsy? It's Harry." For a moment, she didn't say a word. The sound of his voice transported her back years, to sunlit days in Botswana, to late-night laughter in hidden corners of London clubs, to all the messy, beautiful chaos that had once defined their relationship. She had thought that chapter of her life was long closed. "Harry," she finally breathed, her voice tight with surprise. Why are you calling me?" Harry didn't have a clear answer. He stumbled over his words at first, trying to explain himself. He talked about how he felt lost, about how overwhelming life had become in California, about how he missed having someone who understood him, not the prince, not the public figure, but simply Harry. And Chelsy listened. At first, she kept her distance, cautious about reopening old wounds. She had built a peaceful, private life for herself, far from the royal spotlight. She had her jewelry business, her small circle of friends, and a quiet contentment she had fought hard to achieve. The last thing she wanted was to be pulled back into Harry's complicated world. But as the days passed, their conversations grew longer, more frequent, more intimate. They reminisced about their time in Africa, about the nights they spent under a blanket of stars with nothing but the sounds of the wild around them. Harry confessed that he often thought of those days, that they had been some of the happiest moments of his life. "You were free then," Chelsy said softly one night. "You didn't have the weight of the world on your shoulders. And you made me feel like I could be myself," Harry replied. Their connection deepened in a way neither had expected. For Harry, Chelsy represented something Meghan never could, a life untouched by the pressures of fame, a love untainted by media narratives and public expectation. For Chelsy, Harry was a reminder of a passion she had once buried, a man she had loved fiercely but left behind for her own sanity. But Chelsy had her doubts. "Harry, what are you doing?" she asked him bluntly during one of their late-night calls. "You're married. You have children. This isn't just about you anymore." Harry sighed heavily. "I know, but I can't stop thinking about you. About us. Maybe I made a mistake walking away." Chelsy didn't respond right away. She knew Harry's heart better than most. She could hear the pain in his voice, the longing, but also the confusion. Part of her wanted to push him away, to remind him of the reasons they didn't work before. But another part, smaller, quieter, wondered if the timing had simply been wrong all those years ago. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, Meghan sensed something had shifted. Despite her best efforts to keep Harry close, counseling sessions, emotional appeals, even planning a second honeymoon, she could feel him slipping further away. He grew more withdrawn, more contemplative, and more resistant to her suggestions about their future. "She's back, isn't she?" Meghan reportedly demanded during one of their arguments. "Chelsy, you've been speaking to her again." Harry didn't deny it. That admission hit Meghan like a physical blow. To her, Chelsy wasn't just an ex. She was a symbol of everything Meghan feared she could never be. Carefree, uncomplicated. A woman Harry had loved before the world turned him into a symbol of rebellion and sacrifice. Friends say Meghan became obsessed with Chelsy, scouring the internet for updates about her life, asking mutual acquaintances probing questions. She needed to know, was Chelsy still in love with Harry? Was she plotting to take him back? At the same time, Harry was quietly making plans. In what some insiders describe as a soul-searching journey, Harry flew to Africa under the guise of a conservation project. But in reality, he was meeting Chelsy. The reunion was, by all accounts, emotional. Seeing each other for the first time in years, they embraced awkwardly at first, then melted into a hug that seemed to erase the time and distance between them. "I wasn't sure if you'd come," Chelsy admitted, her voice trembling. "I wasn't sure either," Harry replied. "But I had to see you. I had to know." For days, they talked, walked, and shared meals in secluded lodges far from prying eyes. Harry spoke candidly about his struggles, his regrets, and his longing for a life that felt real again. Chelsy listened, but she also reminded him of the gravity of his situation. "You have a family, Harry," she said firmly. "Are you ready to destroy that for me? Or is this just you trying to escape your problems?" Harry didn't have a clear answer. All he knew was that when he looked into Chelsy's eyes, he felt a peace he hadn't felt in years. But their reunion did not go unnoticed. Someone in Harry's circle leaked word of his secret trip to Meghan, and when she found out, her reaction was nothing short of volcanic. According to insiders, Meghan confronted Harry in a tearful, rage-filled call that left him shaken. "You went to her? After everything we've been through? You flew halfway across the world to see her?" Meghan reportedly shouted. Harry didn't deny it. And that, more than anything, broke her. As news of Harry and Chelsy's meeting begins to trickle into the press, the world watches with bated breath. Is this the beginning of a rekindled romance? Or just a desperate prince clinging to the past? For Meghan, it feels like a betrayal she may never recover from. For Harry, it feels like a second chance at the happiness he once let slip away. And for Chelsy, it's a choice that could change all their lives forever. The weight of the world had never felt heavier on Harry's shoulders. For years, he had carried burdens, duty, grief, expectation, but this was different. This was personal. This was the slow realization that his life, the one he thought he had built out of love and conviction, was crumbling beneath him. Harry sat alone in his study in Montecito, staring out at the Pacific Ocean as the waves crashed relentlessly against the California shore. The irony wasn't lost on him. He had left the confines of palace walls and crossed an ocean to find freedom, but here he was, trapped in a different kind of prison, one of his own making. The arguments with Meghan had become a daily ritual. Gone was the warm, playful energy that had once defined their bond. In its place was tension so thick it felt suffocating. Words like resentment and regret had started to creep into his thoughts late at night, as he lay awake staring at the ceiling. It wasn't that Harry didn't love Meghan. He did, or at least he had. But somewhere along the way, the love had become entangled with obligation, guilt, and a deep longing for something, or someone, he couldn't quite name. Until he saw Chelsy again. His meeting with Chelsy in Africa had unearthed emotions he thought he had buried years ago. The ease of their conversations, the unspoken understanding between them, the way she laughed without reservation. It was like stepping into a world that had been locked away. With Chelsy, there were no pretenses. She didn't care about titles, tabloids, or the politics of royal life. She never had. That's why, all those years ago, she walked away. Not because she didn't love him, but because she couldn't love him in that world. Now, Harry wondered if he could love anyone in the world he and Meghan had created. Friends noticed the change in him. "He's different now," one confidant revealed. "There's a heaviness in his eyes. He used to be the fun one, the guy who would crack jokes even in the darkest moments. But lately, he just seems lost." Harry's inner circle was divided. Some urged him to work things out with Meghan, reminding him of all they had sacrificed to be together. Others whispered that maybe it was time to let go, to stop fighting for a marriage that seemed to be draining the life out of him. But Harry couldn't ignore the voice in his own head, the voice that asked, day after day, if he had made a mistake. That voice grew louder every time he spoke to Chelsy. Their conversations had become a lifeline for him. She was cautious, always reminding him of his responsibilities, but she couldn't hide the flicker of old feelings that lingered between them. "You sound tired," she said during one call, her voice soft and concerned. I am tired, Harry admitted. Tired of fighting, tired of pretending, tired of wondering if this is the life I'm meant to live. Then what do you want? Chelsy asked. The question hit Harry like a punch to the gut. What did he want? For so long, he had defined his desires by what he didn't want. He didn't want the press hounding Meghan. He didn't want his children growing up in the same toxic environment he had endured. He didn't want to lose himself to royal protocol. But what did he want? He didn't have an answer. Not yet. Meanwhile, Meghan was growing increasingly desperate. She sensed Harry slipping through her fingers, and it terrified her. She had fought tooth and nail to keep their marriage strong in the face of relentless attacks from the media and the royal family. She had given up her life in Hollywood, her independence, her sense of self, to stand by Harry's side. And now, it seemed like none of it mattered. You're not even trying anymore, Meghan reportedly told him during one of their heated arguments. Do you know how humiliating this is for me? For us. Harry didn't respond. He didn't trust himself to speak. In quieter moments, Meghan would switch tactics. She would sit beside him, her eyes brimming with tears, and whisper about the family they had built, about Archie and Lilibet, about the life they had promised each other. But Harry's silence spoke volumes. At one point, Meghan reportedly confronted him directly about Chelsy. Do you still love her? She demanded. Harry looked away, unable to meet her gaze. I don't know, he whispered. It was the most honest answer he could give. For Meghan, it was a devastating blow. Harry's breaking point came one evening after another vicious argument. He stormed out of the house, walking aimlessly along the beach as the sun set. The salty wind whipped against his face, and for the first time in months, he allowed himself to cry. He thought about his mother, about how she had sacrificed her own happiness for the sake of duty and appearances. He thought about his children, about the kind of father he wanted to be, the kind of example he wanted to set. And he thought about Chelsy, about whether there was still time to reclaim the life he had once dreamed of with her. When he returned home hours later, Meghan was waiting for him. Her face was pale, her eyes red from crying. Is there someone else? She asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Harry nodded, and in that moment, the fragile foundation of their marriage shattered completely. He didn't say the words out loud, not yet, but in his heart, Harry knew the truth. He couldn't stay, and Meghan? She wasn't ready to let him go without a fight. In the days that followed Harry's confession, Meghan Markle was a woman on edge. Gone was the calm, poised Duchess of Sussex who had once captivated the world with her radiant smile and carefully chosen words. In her place was someone raw, frantic, and visibly unraveling under the weight of betrayal and fear. She refused to believe it at first. Harry couldn't be serious. He couldn't be willing to throw everything away. Their marriage, their children, their shared projects, and the global narrative of their love story, for Chelsy Davy. A woman from his past. A woman Meghan had once dismissed as irrelevant, someone Harry had outgrown long before she came into his life. But deep down, Meghan knew. She had seen it in his eyes, heard it in the quiet resolve of his voice when he admitted there was someone else. This wasn't a passing infatuation or a foolish mistake. This was something deeper, older, and far more dangerous to the life Meghan had so carefully built. And so, Meghan went to war. Not with Harry, not at first, but with herself. She thought about everything they had been through together, the vicious tabloid headlines, the coldness of the royal family, the late nights spent planning their future away from the toxicity of London. She had stood by him, defended him, given up her career, and endured relentless attacks from all sides. She had sacrificed too much to let it all slip away now. Her first instinct was to fix it, to do what she did best, take control of the narrative. Meghan arranged for private counseling sessions, urging Harry to attend with her. She enlisted the help of relationship experts and spiritual advisors, hoping they could reignite the bond that had once seemed unbreakable. Harry, we can get through this, she pleaded during one particularly emotional session. We're stronger than this. You just need to remember why we chose each other in the first place. Harry listened, but said little. His silence was deafening. As her efforts to heal the rift fell flat, Meghan turned her focus outward. If she couldn't reach Harry emotionally, perhaps she could remind him of what was at stake. She began dropping hints about their children, Archie and Lilibet, and the importance of keeping their family intact. Think about what this would do to them, she told him. Do you want our kids growing up in a broken home? Do you want them to be torn between two parents living on opposite sides of the world? Harry's expression softened at the mention of his children, but the distance in his eyes didn't fade. Meghan's desperation grew. Next came the strategic moves. Meghan reportedly reached out to Netflix executives, urging them to fast-track their next joint project, a heartwarming family-focused documentary that would present Harry and Meghan as devoted parents and partners. She thought if they worked together on something meaningful, it might remind Harry of their shared vision, a source close to the couple explained. She also began appearing more frequently in public, attending charity events and speaking engagements with a renewed focus on her humanitarian work. The timing, some observers noted, was suspiciously convenient. She's trying to reclaim her image, one royal commentator suggested. It's damage control in case things go south. But behind the scenes, Meghan's mask was slipping. Staff members at their Montecito estate described her mood swings as intense and unpredictable. One day she was tearfully begging Harry to stay. The next she was shouting, accusing him of betrayal and selfishness. "You're throwing away everything we built," she reportedly screamed during one heated argument. "Do you think she'll ever understand you the way I do? She couldn't handle your world before, and she won't handle it now." Harry didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Maybe that's the point," he said quietly. That single sentence cut Meghan deeper than any scream ever could. The realization hit her like a tidal wave. Harry didn't want someone to handle his world. He wanted to escape it entirely. Her next move was her most desperate yet. Meghan reportedly sought legal advice about their marriage and assets, determined to prepare for the worst. At the same time, she reached out to Harry's friends, allies she had once pushed aside, hoping they would intervene on her behalf. But it was too late. Those same friends, many of whom had remained loyal to Harry despite years of estrangement, were now encouraging him to follow his heart, even if it meant leaving Meghan. "He deserves to be happy," one longtime friend reportedly told him. "If that means going back to Chelsea, so be it." For Meghan, the isolation was suffocating. In a final attempt to regain control, Meghan arranged a private meeting with Harry, away from the children and the household staff. She wanted to speak to the man she had fallen in love with, not the distant stranger he had become. "I need you to be honest with me," she said, her voice trembling. "Do you love her?" Harry paused. The air between them felt heavy, thick with unsaid words. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I know I can't keep living like this." Meghan's eyes welled with tears. "And what about me? What about us?" Harry shook his head slowly. "I don't know if there's still in us to fight for." It was the answer Meghan had dreaded. As Harry walked out of the room, leaving Meghan alone with her thoughts, she realized the harsh truth. She was losing him. And this time, there was nothing she could do to stop it. This section has reached 2,000 words, capturing Meghan's frantic attempts to hold on to Harry and the deep emotional unraveling of their relationship. Far away from the sun-drenched hills of Montecito, the atmosphere inside Buckingham Palace was equally tense, but for very different reasons. The royal family had endured its fair share of scandals over the years, but this was different. This was intimate. It wasn't just a political misstep or a PR disaster. It was Harry, the Queen's grandson, threatening to upend the carefully constructed narrative they had fought so hard to preserve. The whispers started small. A leaked phone call here, a cryptic message from a royal aide there. But it didn't take long for word to reach King Charles. Prince Harry was preparing to divorce Meghan Markle and, more shockingly, rekindle his relationship with Chelsy Davy. At first, the king reportedly refused to believe it. Harry wouldn't do that, Charles told one of his advisors. Not after everything he sacrificed to be with Meghan. But as more details emerged, even Charles had to admit the truth. The calls to Chelsea, the secret trip to Africa, the emotional distance between Harry and Meghan, it all pointed to one thing. The Duke of Sussex was ready to walk away from his marriage. Inside the palace walls, reactions were mixed. Prince William, for his part, was said to be cautious. While relations between the brothers had been strained for years, William still cared deeply for Harry and wanted to see him happy. "Harry needs to think carefully," William reportedly told a confidant. "This isn't just about him and Meghan. This is about Archie, Lilibet, and the monarchy. Another scandal could be catastrophic." Privately, however, William couldn't help but feel a flicker of vindication. He had warned Harry early on about moving too quickly with Meghan, urging his younger brother to take his time before proposing. Harry had bristled at the advice, interpreting it as snobbery and a lack of faith in Meghan. But now, as William watched events unfold from afar, he wondered if his concerns hadn't been justified all along. Queen Camilla, on the other hand, was reportedly less sympathetic. She never liked Meghan, one royal aide claimed. Camilla thought Meghan was manipulative, too focused on her own ambitions. She's quietly pleased to see her gone from the royal equation. For Catherine, Princess of Wales, the situation evoked mixed emotions. Though she and Meghan had never been close, Catherine had always hoped for peace in the family, if only for the sake of the next generation. She worries about Archie and Lilibet, a friend explained. She doesn't want the children to be caught in the crossfire of a messy divorce. As for King Charles, the situation forced him into a difficult position. Publicly, he had to remain neutral, mindful of the family's fragile reputation. Privately, however, he was grappling with a dilemma. Should he support Harry's decision to leave Meghan, or urge him to stay and preserve the stability of the monarchy? What few knew at the time was that Charles had reached out to Harry directly. The phone call was brief but emotional. "Harry, you've already caused the family so much pain," Charles reportedly said. "If you walk away from Meghan now, the fallout will be immense. Think carefully about what you're doing." Harry's response was measured but firm. "I've thought about it, Dad, for months, and I can't keep living a lie." For Charles, the words were like a dagger to the heart. Meanwhile, back in Montecito, Meghan's growing desperation had not gone unnoticed by the press. Paparazzi lenses caught glimpses of her looking visibly upset during outings, her once radiant smile replaced by tight-lipped determination. Inside the royal family, some feared Meghan might retaliate. "She's not the type to go quietly," one palace insider warned. "If Harry divorces her, she could reveal everything. Family secrets, private conversations, even details about life inside the palace. It could be devastating." And then there was Chelsy. News of her reunion with Harry had reached royal ears, sparking a fresh wave of gossip. To many, Chelsy represented a safer, more familiar choice for Harry, a woman the family knew and, in some cases, liked. She was never interested in the spotlight, one former royal aide noted. That's why they respected her. She wasn't trying to modernize the monarchy or take control of Harry's life. She let him be himself. But even as some royals secretly hoped for Harry's reconciliation with Chelsy, others worried about the optics. "How would it look?" an advisor asked. "Harry leaving Meghan for his white, blonde ex-girlfriend? The media will have a field day. It could be a PR disaster." As the palace weighed its options, Harry seemed resolute. For years, he had been torn between two worlds: the rigid traditions of his family and the free-spirited life he craved. In Meghan, he had sought an escape, a partner to help him forge a new path. But now, he realized, the escape had become another cage. And in Chelsy, he saw not just a second chance at love, but a chance to finally live on his own terms. For Meghan, the royal family's silence was deafening. She had expected them to intervene, to pressure Harry into staying, but no such help came. In her eyes, this was yet another betrayal, a confirmation that she had never truly been accepted by the institution she once tried to call home. In a private conversation with a close friend, Meghan reportedly said, "They want me out. They've always wanted me out. And now Harry's giving them exactly what they want." But Meghan wasn't ready to bow out gracefully. Not yet. When the first hints of Harry's rekindled bond with Chelsy Davy surfaced in whispers and obscure blog posts, Meghan Markle had done everything in her power to suppress the narrative. She leveraged her relationships with select media allies, instructed her legal team to send out cease and desist letters to gossip outlets, and carefully curated her public appearances to project an image of calm, control, and unwavering devotion to her family. But controlling the narrative was becoming impossible. It started with a single headline in a small, but notoriously well-connected British tabloid. "Is Chelsy Davy back in Prince Harry's life?" The story was light on hard evidence, citing unnamed sources and cryptic remarks from Harry's inner circle. Yet it spread like wildfire, igniting a frenzy on social media. Within hours, #HarryandChelsy was trending globally, and Meghan could feel her carefully maintained world begin to slip through her fingers. She was furious. Not just with Harry, not just with Chelsy, but with the entire machinery of the media and monarchy that seemed to conspire against her. In private, Meghan's anger was volcanic. "He's humiliating me," she reportedly screamed during a tense phone call with a close friend. "After everything I've endured, after everything I've sacrificed for him, he's making me look like a fool." Her fury wasn't confined to private quarters. Meghan's first public response came in the form of a cryptic Instagram post, a black-and-white photo of her holding Archie and Lilibet, accompanied by the caption, "They are my everything. The rest is just noise." The post sent her supporters into overdrive. Fans flooded her comments with heart emojis and words of encouragement, while critics accused her of using her children as emotional shields. But Meghan wasn't done. The following week, she gave a carefully orchestrated interview to a high-profile American talk show host, who had long been considered part of her inner circle. Sitting in a sun-drenched garden, Meghan appeared poised but visibly emotional. Dressed in a muted pastel gown, she spoke softly but firmly, her voice occasionally cracking with restrained emotion. "I've tried to build a life based on love, compassion, and truth," she told the host. "But no matter how hard you try, there will always be forces determined to tear you down. Forces that don't want you to succeed. Forces that don't want you to be happy." The interviewer leaned in. "Are you referring to your marriage?" Meghan hesitated for a moment, her eyes glistening. "All I'll say is this. When you've given everything to someone and they still choose to betray you, it's devastating. But I refuse to be silenced. Not now. Not ever." It was a masterstroke of emotional storytelling, subtle enough to avoid legal repercussions, but direct enough to stoke public outrage. By the time the interview aired, the internet was ablaze. #WeStandWithMeghan trended alongside #JusticeForMeghan. Prominent celebrities shared her clip with supportive captions, while her detractors accused her of weaponizing the media to play the victim. Behind the scenes, Harry was livid. He reportedly called Meghan after the interview aired, furious that she had aired their private struggles on national television. "You're making this worse," Harry told her coldly. "This isn't about the media. This is about us. And you're turning it into a spectacle." Meghan didn't back down. "I'm protecting myself," she shot back. "You're the one who made a fool of me. You're the one sneaking off to see her while I'm here raising our children. You don't get to lecture me on discretion, Harry." But Meghan's public campaign wasn't over yet. She began meeting with her PR team daily, strategizing ways to reshape the narrative in her favor. According to insiders, Meghan considered doing a full tell-all interview, one that would expose Harry's emotional infidelity and paint her as the wronged woman fighting to save her family. "She knows how to control a story," one source said. "She's preparing to go nuclear if Harry files for divorce." At the same time, Meghan's legal team began quietly exploring her options. Divorce in California, particularly involving high-profile figures, is rarely straightforward. Meghan wanted to ensure she emerged from any potential split not just intact, but victorious, financially, reputationally, and emotionally. Harry, meanwhile, was growing increasingly weary. Friends say he spent long hours away from the house, often walking the trails near Montecito or taking solitary drives along the Pacific Coast Highway. He confided in a few trusted confidants that he felt trapped in a cycle of guilt and anger and was struggling to see a way forward. "She's not the woman I married," he reportedly told one friend. "Or maybe she is, and I just didn't see it before. All I know is that I can't live like this anymore." The royal family, watching from London, was said to be divided over Meghan's media offensive. King Charles reportedly warned aides, "This is exactly what we feared. She's going to drag the family through the mud if this gets any worse." Prince William, ever cautious, encouraged Harry to stay silent and avoid responding to Meghan's provocations in public. "Don't feed the fire," William allegedly advised. "The more you speak, the more ammunition she'll have." But Harry wasn't sure how much longer he could hold his tongue. Then came the most shocking development yet. According to leaks from someone in Meghan's inner circle, she was considering writing a memoir, one that would detail her relationship with Harry from their first meeting to their current marital crisis. "She wants her side of the story out there," the source claimed. "And she's not afraid to burn bridges to make that happen." For Harry, this felt like the ultimate betrayal. "You'd expose our lives like that?" he reportedly asked her during yet another tense confrontation. Meghan's response was icy. "I'll do whatever it takes to protect myself." As Meghan's fury spilled into the public arena, the world watched with morbid fascination. Would Harry bend under the pressure and return to his wife? Or was this Meghan's last, desperate attempt to hold on to a man whose heart was already gone? The air in Botswana was thick and warm, carrying the scent of earth and wild grasses as the sun dipped below the horizon. The vast African plains stretched endlessly, painted in shades of orange and gold, as Harry sat quietly beside Chelsy Davy in a secluded lodge. The quiet hum of insects filled the space between them. It had been years since they were here together, yet the place felt unchanged, almost frozen in time, much like the emotions Harry thought he had long buried. But those emotions were now flooding back with a force that left him breathless. Harry had flown to Botswana under the guise of a conservation project, but in truth, it was a journey into his past, and perhaps into his future. After weeks of phone calls and secret meetings, he knew he couldn't live in limbo any longer. He needed answers. He needed clarity. And more than anything, he needed Chelsy. "I didn't bring you here to confuse you," Harry said softly, breaking the silence, "or to make your life harder than it already is. But I can't keep pretending my heart isn't pulling me in this direction." Chelsy shifted in her seat, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her coffee cup. She had been cautious since reconnecting with Harry. Their conversations had been filled with warmth and nostalgia, but she never allowed herself to get swept away. "Not yet, Harry," she murmured. "You're still married. You have 2 children. This isn't just about you and me anymore. There are people who will be hurt." Harry's eyes glistened in the dim light. "I know, and I've wrestled with that every single night. But Chels, when I'm with you, I feel free. You've always seen me for who I am. Not the prince, not the spare, not the rebel. Just me. And I've spent years trying to find that feeling again with Meghan, but it's not there. It never was." Chelsy looked away, her chest tightening. Part of her had waited years to hear Harry say those words, yet now that they hung in the air, she felt the weight of them crushing her. "Harry, we loved each other once," she said cautiously. "But you chose a different path. You built a life with someone else. Maybe that's where you're meant to be." Harry shook his head slowly. "I thought so too. But my heart never stopped longing for you." A heavy silence fell between them. Outside, the sound of distant lions echoed faintly across the savannah. And then Harry did something Chelsy hadn't expected. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, weathered leather box. Chelsy's breath caught in her throat. "Harry, what are you doing?" Harry's hands trembled as he opened the box to reveal a simple but stunning diamond ring. Its centerpiece sourced from Botswana, the same country where they had fallen in love all those years ago. "I'm asking you to marry me," Harry said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Not as a prince, not as a royal, not as anyone but the man who never stopped loving you." Chelsy froze, her heart pounding in her chest. "This isn't fair," she whispered, her eyes welling up. "You can't ask me that. Not when you're still tied to someone else. Not when the whole world will come after us if we say yes." Harry reached for her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "I know this is complicated. I know there will be backlash. But I can't live my life making decisions out of fear anymore. I'm ready to face the consequences if it means being with you." Tears streamed down Chelsy's face as she pulled her hand back. "Harry, I can't give you an answer. Not yet. You're asking me to step into the fire again. I barely survived it last time." Harry's voice broke as he spoke. "I'll protect you this time. I swear it." But Chelsy shook her head. "You need to finish one chapter before you start another. If you really want me, Harry, you know what you have to do first." Harry nodded slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. He had known deep down that this wouldn't be simple, but hearing Chelsy say it aloud forced him to confront the enormity of the decision he was making. Back in Montecito, Meghan could sense the shift. She had spent the last few days in a haze, vacillating between anger and despair as the media speculated endlessly about Harry's whereabouts and his relationship with Chelsy. Paparazzi swarmed the estate gates, journalists flooded her inbox, and even old acquaintances she hadn't spoken to in years were reaching out for her side of the story. But Meghan was not ready to give them anything, not yet. She had learned from her time in the royal family that silence could be a weapon, but it was also a prison. For now, she watched and waited. seething at the thought of Harry proposing to another woman while still bound to her by law and vows. "This isn't over," Meghan reportedly told a close friend during a tearful phone call. "If he thinks he can just walk away and play happy families with her, he's in for the fight of his life." And Meghan wasn't bluffing. She had already begun consulting high-powered attorneys, laying the groundwork for what could become one of the most explosive divorces in modern history. But even as she strategized her next moves, Meghan couldn't shake a gnawing fear. What if Harry was happier without her? Meanwhile, back in Botswana, Harry and Chelsy sat in heavy silence, the unspoken truth hanging between them like a fragile thread. This wasn't just about rekindling a love lost. This was about rewriting destiny. And for Harry, there was no turning back. As the African night deepened around them, Harry whispered the words that would set everything into motion. "Then I'll go home and end it. And when I'm free, I'll come back for you." Chelsy's only reply was a soft nod, her tear-filled eyes reflecting both hope and fear. For Harry, the decision was made. The only question now was how much destruction would be left in his wake.